Everyone, we're just going to wait a few minutes to make sure everyone joins and is connected, and then we'll begin. Alrighty, welcome everyone to DIDI's August open house. My name is Razan Al-Mazougi. I am the student recruitment manager at DIDI. Today we're going to hear from DIDI faculty as well as guest speakers from the industry. So from the faculty we have our Dean Hani Asfour and also Carlos Montana, who teaches our foundation program. And also, in terms of guests, we have Alessandro from Fjord Accenture, and we also have Dr. Ali Azawi from Smart Dubai. And before we begin, we're going to show you a fun video about DIDI, and then after that, Hani and Carlos will start.
No great thing, no beautiful invention happened just like that. It happens when we leave our comfort zone and embrace change, creativity, and out of the ordinary. We live in interesting times. We live in a world that's constantly asking questions, that's constantly changing. In a world where blockchain and robots will be the norm, where 85% of tomorrow's jobs don't exist yet, where being multi-skilled is not just celebrated, but essential. At Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation, we believe that we need to prepare you for the future, to teach you skills that will power your tomorrow. Today, design matters more than ever. But how can design help, you may ask? We combine disciplines so you become well-rounded. From product design, multimedia design, fashion design, strategic design management, it's where you will learn how to merge different design disciplines. Presenting a 4-year Bachelor of Design degree in collaboration with MIT and Parsons' new School of Design. DIDI, not just another design university.
Alrighty, Hani, Carlos, over to you.
Thank you, Razan. I'm Hani. I'm the Dean of DIDI. I'm very excited to welcome you, welcome our guests as well. We have today my colleague Carlos Montana, Associate Professor, would be presenting the student work. We have Dr. Ali Al-Azawi. He's from Smart Dubai. He's really the brains, I think, behind Smart Dubai. And we have Alessandro Getty, who is the go-to-market director for Fjord Accenture. And if you don't know Smart Dubai or Fjord Accenture, this is a momentous time to get to know about these amazing institutions that combine creativity and design in their work. And this is, I say it's momentous because design matters more than ever. So I'm going to share my screen to walk you through the way we think about design and the way we think that our role is to future-proof the next generation of designers. So we believe that design matters more than ever. And it's basically what we heard in the video. At the same time, this is the main driver for us. So having people like Dr. Ali and Alessandro joining us today is testimony that these excellent companies, which are technically not traditional design companies, they're not design boutiques, they're not known as designers, they come as strategic thinkers, as people who are putting Dubai on the map of the future, pushing the edge of Dubai. And they are here to actually reconfirm that design matters more than ever. And the question is, why is design so important? Especially that everything that is human is designed. If you look around you, you touch anything, just look around you. Everything around you is man-made, and everything man-made is designed. So today it becomes more important because our argument is that at the core of the fourth industrial revolution, the revolution that we are experiencing now, designers are going to be the drivers of change. Designers are going to be the people who are going to make it meaningful. So let me put on my professor hat and just go quickly through the idea of what is the fourth industrial revolution. So around 1770 in Britain, the steam engine was invented. And 100 years later, equipment, machinery, everything became run by electricity. Electricity got to their homes thanks to people like Tesla and Edison. And then in 1970, we start digitization. By the late 80s, 90s, we had internet. And today, as if you notice, the first three revolutions are automating human labor. Now we are automating human intelligence with AI. And this is the significance of the fourth industrial revolution, if you ask me. It's the automation of human intelligence, which means that many people's jobs will be replaced the way we know them. So as the machine replaced hard labor, the machine is going to replace soft labor, like intelligent work. So we need to be prepared and prepare your children, or prepare you if you are an applicant to DIDI, to prepare you for this future. And the way design comes into play is that while other industries look at the machines that, or the industry or the technologies that transform society, we as designers look at that and we add another layer, which is the human layer. Like, how did human relations change based on these new technologies? So the steam engine relations became based on commodities. We started demanding for services to make sure these commodities are well maintained. And then from the 70s till around a few years ago, we started demanding experiences. And I'll give you an example of an experience. Starbucks is a very good example of an experience economy product, because it actually thinks about, how do I create an experience around a cup of coffee? They're not just a coffee shop. They're building an experience around the social life of someone drinking coffee. So you can work there, you can socialize, you becomes a meeting place. The whole setup is designed as a meeting place. It's no longer a service because you can get coffee from an espresso machine, or a commodity because you can get beans on your own. So it's moved from beans to self-service to actually building a whole experience around it. And today, this generation is demanding fulfillment. So what we mean by fulfillment, let me explain that, is an emotional fulfillment with the services and products that you use. And what we call this, the goal of the fourth industrial revolution, is fundamentally to take care of each individual's well-being at every level. So this generation, we tend to tell them, oh, you're so privileged and you're so entitled. Well, you know what we've done, we've actually set them up to feel that way. Because if you think about the Fitbit, which is a product of the fourth industrial revolution, is basically, it's designed to give them information only about themselves. It's not interested in giving them information about the stock market or about the weather. It's purely about their well-being. It's purely about the number of steps they have made, their heart rate. So it's directed to them. And this is the reason why this generation expects fulfillment, is entitled to fulfillment, because everything we've done so far as humans is to reach to this point in our world. So the question is then, how do we continue to create fulfilling experiences? And here's the argument for it. Many people want to go into business school, which is understandable, because in business school, you learn how to make a product or service profitable or marketable. And this is what you learn in those schools. And if you go, and basically the key message is, how can I make money, right? And then you see yourselves on a yacht and jet setting and all of that sets up that imagery. The second one is basically the engineers, your engineering friends or people who engineers are focused on making the thing work. So the success, the measure of success of that product, if it works, if it's feasible. So in a way, the first one is viability. The second one is feasibility. And this is where designers come in. We shift the conversation from quantitative assumptions and quantitative goals to qualitative, to the quality, the meaning, etc. Because at the end of the day, the designer is thinking about the user and how do we make that user change. So how does our product or service or offering or thinking or whatever that we do touches the heart of the person at the center of this thing. And what's interesting today is that design has always done this. But today, businesses are saying, oh, wait a minute, for me to differentiate my product, I need to make the customer productive. So today you hear businesses talking about user-centric, design thinking. They discovered design thinking recently because they see the value of it, because it's going to create a fulfilling experience for the user. The same thing with an engineer. They're realizing that if the customer is not finding efficiency in their life because of their product, they're going to choose another product. Let me give you an example of what I mean. So if I pick these two cars, and I pick them for the simple reason because on a business level, they're marketed to the same audience, they have the same price point, they have similar marketing schemes in terms of all the business value that they give to the company. They are the ones that are going to be the drivers to bring in the youth into. So on every level, strategic level, they are more or less the same. And then on engineering level, they're pretty much identical. They have the similar specs, they have the similar power and torque, and et cetera, et cetera. So how are you going to make a decision when they're the same price and the same engineering? You're not going to look under the hood, especially that today the engines are opaque. I mean, they're black boxes and mostly electronics, right? So you're going to make the decision purely on how it makes you feel, how the car makes you feel, and as importantly, how society would perceive you and your values, right? So all of these factors, which are totally intangible, totally emotional, have a market value. This is where the value is. It's intangible. It's hard to pinpoint. And that's why we don't think of design in business terms. In fact, at the end of the day, your decision's purely emotional. And the same thing with phones. Even the way they present them to you, they're presented in exactly the same way. So the marketing, the positioning, everything is the same. The features are similar. The apps are similar. You can find all the services. In the end, you're going to choose not based on this, because if you do that, you will lose the warranty. Basically, you will choose it on how it makes you feel and what it says about you. Don't take my words for it. There's something called the Design Value Index, which has mapped products over time. So here's an S&P index mapping of an investment in 2003. And 10 years later, the values is pretty decent. It's not bad. But if you invest in a design-led company, and there's a whole list of design companies, if you'd like, I can give you a list from the DMI, the Design Management Institute, of what is meant by that. So basically, the value is just going to be tremendously higher if it's design-led. Why? Because people actually build loyalties with brands today based on their experience and the sense of fulfillment that they get. To make a long story short, what I'm trying to say is that design is the bridge between strategy and technology. The reason is because design humanizes technology. Technology is incredible, but it needs to be humanized. And basically, design makes innovation visible. You may have the world's best idea, but if you're not able to communicate it visually, which is what designers do, it's a useless idea. No one will understand it. So design skills teach you how to make innovation visible. And to me, which is so important, is that it makes the digital experience desirable, makes people want to have that experience. So you can have the world's best robot, but if people don't feel connected, it's not desirable. It's not what people want, and your product is going to be laid to waste. It's going to be shelved. So at DIDI, we have a big task to future-proof the next generation. And if you remember in the video, we did point out that when blockchains and robots will be the norm, which is today, we're going to have to be able to future-proof our students in a way where we know that 85% of tomorrow's jobs don't yet exist. That's a big number. We don't know what these jobs are. So we cannot start the university and say, oh, you know what? We don't know what we're preparing our students, this youth for, especially that we have Sheikh Mohammed pinning a lot of hope on building an innovation economy, an economy in Dubai that is based on this youth becoming leaders in creativity. So we have a big task. So what's the first thing that we do? We research. We started looking for, before we started the university, like what are the jobs that are needed out there? Augmented reality designer is definitely a big job that would be in demand very soon. And our source is Fast Company for some of these. Chief drone experience designer. This is one of my favorite because technology says we can have drone deliveries like Prime Air by Amazon. We can also have cut a lot of jobs and increase the profit margin of companies by delivering by drone. But have you ever thought about receiving a product by drone? Have you ever thought about being chased by this flying robot with a box about to drop it on your head? I mean, it's more like a scene of Horror from the Birds by Alfred Hitchcock than anything else. So while we get excited about what's possible, we really need to think about what is the human experience of that thing. So before we get all excited about being chased by robots with box about to drop on our heads, someone has to build a relationship between this robot and the human at the end of it to make it a favorable and desirable experience. So chief drone experience designer to me seems like a no-brainer that someone needs to design that. Embodied technology designer with all these devices now being on our bodies or in our bodies, what is that interface going to be like? They need to be on your skin. Can you imagine like being so intimate? And so basically someone has to design that experience. The same thing, the IoT conductor, 3D printed textile designers, human organ designer. I'm going fast through these just to tell you what kinds of jobs. We have many, many more. But human organ designer requires that we actually participate and collaborate with the medical industry, which we do. Professor Carlos can tell you about the work that we've done and the work we continue to do with the Mohammed bin Rashid University for Medical and Health Sciences, MBRU. So it's basically one of the early universities to adopt design in their curriculum as a medical school. Chief Design Officer, the UAE now it has a role in the government called Chief Design Officer. This is Peter Schreier. He was the Chief Design Officer of Kia until recently. And he's the one that transformed Kia from an unknown backwater Korean car company to a world leader in design that's winning award after award. And you notice Kia today, you consider Kia. The Pope drives a Kia. So basically, this is an important transformation of a bland, undesirable company to a highly desirable. And the reason Kia knew how to do this, which is, by the way, the power to surprise is their slogan, is because they put Peter Schreier as a DEO, as a design executive officer. So he's no longer in the back room. He's actually in the boardroom. He's one of the decision makers. Now his replacement, just to keep this factual, is basically his mentee, who was also the head of design at Audi. So it's the Audi designers who are graduating in a way from Audi and joining Kia to continue this design culture at Kia. So what we need to do is to make sure that our students, when they graduate, are not replaced by machines, when we know that 50% of jobs, this is according to McKinsey, will be lost in the next 10 years. So what do we have to do? And our approach has been very straightforward, very simple. From day one, we believe in combinatory education. And when we spoke to Google about this idea, Google in the region here at a conference organized by INSEAD, which is the French business schools, like the Harvard Business School in France, Google said, we're looking for people with hybrid skills. We're looking for people, we will hire people who are able to work across different disciplines. And what we call this hybrid skills, and hence our name, the Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation. It's not just design, which is the traditional way of teaching design, and it's not just innovation, because that's such a loose word, it needs to be grounded with design. And as you saw in the video, we actually are working with the world's #1 university. This is according to the QR rankings of 2020 with MIT, which I happen to be a graduate of MIT as well. And the new school, Parsons, which is the #1 design school in the USA. So the #1 university known for its innovation, and the #1 university in the US known for its design skills. So basically, we are in very good hands. We built the curriculum with them, and basically, design and innovation became our DNA. This is the driver. This is like our nuclear difference, if you want. And basically, our DNA is made of 3 things. The visual literacy, so we teach what design schools usually teach, which to help students be able to speak the language of design. We also teach them technological fluency, and now you will see in the projects that Carlos will share what we mean by that. We need them to be super comfortable with the latest technology, so they are actually in control of it. And then strategic proficiency, to understand the strategic power of their creative powers, to channel it in a productive way. So instead of saying, oh, engineers do this and the business people do this, and we're going to do our different thing, which is how the world has been, or education world has been structured. We are blending them all together with visual literacy as the driver. This is our the design in our name. And we have something called the 4 C's, which is at the core of everything that we do. So all the courses that we have, the curriculum, makes sure students learn how to conceptualize, ideate, come up with ideas, how to communicate those ideas, whether through representation or making or different kinds of ways to express those ideas, to make innovation visible, to craft them, to learn the art of fabrication. We are a maker school. We have a state-of-the-art facility for making things, which is the Fab Lab at In5, which hoping you will be able to see it at some point. And then the key differentiator is that we need to care about other people through empathy and care about the planet through sustainable and ecological solutions. So we're driven by those things. If a project misses one of these C's, then we need to make sure it's actually discussed and the student brings it into their work. And as the video showed also, we actually provide 4 disciplines. These are the disciplines we felt the region was missing and where the future of jobs will be. And that's why we don't have architecture, we don't have interior design, because there are many universities in the region doing excellent job doing that, so that doesn't need to be done from us. And this is where the growth is. The second reason is the growth is in product, multimedia, fashion, and strategic design management. Now, you might pause me and say, wait, honey, you're talking about hybrid education. How is this hybrid education? You're right, we asked ourselves the same question. And when we mapped some of the future jobs that we analyzed, I showed you some of them. There are many more that we've looked at. These jobs, we felt that if our students graduated in the traditional way of learning, let's say just product design, these jobs are actually out of reach. The future jobs, they won't have the needed skills for these things. That's why after the first year of introduction to all the disciplines, our students will be asked to combine 2 design disciplines together. So it could be fashion multimedia, product and strategy, fashion strategy, multimedia strategy. And what happens, we generate 6 possible new journeys for our students. I like to call them journeys because we're exploring together. So these 6 possible journeys actually make these jobs within reach, the skills within reach. What does that mean? Let me just be a bit more tangible in that. So let's say you combine product and multimedia, the upper left. So you combine you'll be able to design IoT furniture the day you graduate. And if you talk to furniture makers, even IKEA is making IoT furniture. So if you ask furniture makers, they would say, we're looking for people who understand not just how to make furniture, which they learn in product design. We need someone who understands how it integrates circuitry, how it integrates interaction, how a user comes to terms with these new smart pieces of furniture. And usually they learn it on the job. But if they graduate from DIDI, they have the skills already to be an IoT furniture designer. The same thing for designing wearables. The future we know is going to be in smart glasses. Who's going to make smart glasses? You don't want engineers to do smart glasses, because when they did Google Glass, and it was a disaster. You need someone who has product design skills and fashion skills blended together to come up with something really innovative and be fluent in the language of digitization and coding and understand the strategic value of these things. And this is what DIDI is trying to do. The same thing with interactive clothing, the same thing with blockchain interaction. Think about most of the government software will be blockchain. Maybe Dr. Ali can correct me here or actually validate, but the last I read is that a lot of the technology behind the government will be blockchain based, but someone has to create those interfaces, because you don't want the engineers to develop the interface. And then the same thing with ethical fashion, which is our goal. Our focus is to think about alternative materials and other ways to work in an industry that is known to be a highly polluter industry. And the lead of our program is Professor Nurin Ramisani. She's on vacation today, otherwise we would have included her in our talk. This is her specialty, ethical fashion, and she has her own line of clothing. So not only are our professors, they're practicing. Some of them are practicing professionals. And a chief design officer, which is much needed in the UAE as well. So this leads me to this section before I give it back to Carlos. But what's interesting is that we know that design thinking is the key to innovation. However, we discovered something fascinating as we've been teaching it and sharing it with our students and getting feedback and watching how they have been responding. So the usual way of teaching design thinking is to teach people empathy, to understand their customer, and from that empathy to identify some pain points and issues, and then to come up with ideas to address those issues, and then prototype them, test them with the audience, receive feedback, and iterate and go through the process again. And this is one way I've simplified the design thinking process into a linear process. It's a bit more complex than that, but I think we understand how it goes from empathy to solutions to prototyping. However, what is so deep and what we discovered is that when we're teaching our students empathy, we realize we're teaching them how to accept the other, how to tolerate, how to be able to feel with other people and feel their pain. And when we've been teaching them to identify their problems, we discovered that we're helping them think critically and to analyze and to unpack complex ideas and then to ideate. It's the art of collaboration. We take collaboration for granted, but collaboration is really an art, and it's really based on trust and building on each other's ideas. So this is a skill that I'm sure Fjord, Accenture would have, you base a lot of your work on that. And then prototyping is literally communicating complex ideas, making innovation visible, because you need others to understand your idea. And testing is basically teaching them the humility of accepting criticism and accepting someone telling them that their idea still needs work. It's a form of humility. It teaches them how to be receptive to change. And then iteration is to actually not give up when it's not perfect the first time, but to keep trying. So how to deal with failure. And failure is super important. And what's amazing about this is that while we're teaching them design thinking, we were actually teaching them life skills, the soft skills that will make them succeed, like complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, which is at the core of what we do. And what's fascinating, and this brings us full circle, is these are the top 3 skills that the World Economic Forum has identified as the top 3 skills to succeed in the 4th Industrial Revolution. So it seems we are on the right track in building this institution to prepare the students for the 4th Industrial Revolution. And basically, when we're being asked to do technology and do advancement and do innovation, which we hear all the time from everyone, okay, we want you to innovate, we want you to advance, we want you to reach the moon. We're missing the key question, and this is where the DIDI comes in. We're actually making that technology humanized. We're making that advancement meaningful, and we're making that innovation desirable. It's the left side of the equation that we forget to teach. And this is what's going to make our students succeed. Because mixing all these things together is how we're going to reach this type of fulfillment. So I thank you for your time. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague and associate professor, Carlos Montaña, who is basically going to lead the talk from this point forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hani. I requested control, so I'm just checking if...
Yeah, you should have it now, Carlos. Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. So in the IDI, we have a truly international group and a truly multicultural group. Our students come from all around the world, but especially from the MENA region. So we have students from Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, but we also have some students coming from Australia, from Peru, from Cuba, again, all around the world. And we also have faculty from all around the world. We have people from Finland. I personally am from Colombia, many people from Lebanon, Italy, Brazil, all around the world. And this is very important because, again, looking at the future is a world that is globalized and where sometimes the boundaries between these countries are disappearing, and we need to operate in a globalized world. I'm trying to, Hani, I'll probably need to ask you to click the slides because my clicker is not working. Okay, thank you. So this is some of the faculty. Well, Hani, who is our dean, and some of the foundation faculty, including myself, Rafi, who is specialized in aerospace design, Sejal, who works a lot with technology, game design, coding, and Mirko, who is also a practicing designer, architect, product designer. We have the very big advantage for a university that Hani, our dean, also teaches. So it's not like in many big universities that the faculty don't really get to know the students, and the student is just a number. Here, all faculty and the dean and all the administrative staff get to know everybody, and this is again a great advantage. Next, please. These people here, we teach in the foundation course, which is the first year, where we provide the basic skills for all the different cross disciplines. And then from the second year, as Hani was explaining, our students select their 2 cross disciplines. So we have Nurin Ramisani teaching in fashion, Mika Letonen, teaching in strategic design management, Jonathan Gatto, teaching in product design, and Renata Moraes, teaching in multimedia. Next. Again, design is very much about thinking through making, and making for us is very important. So we have a dedicated fabrication lab in collaboration with In5, and we have Simone, who is our manager, and Heike, who is our technician. And basically here in the Fab Lab is where we cook all the great ideas. So here's where we do our prototyping, either quick prototyping or also the prototyping using the state-of-the-art technologies. Next. And we don't just create beautiful forms like in many design schools that are much more art related. We also, since the beginning of the course, include all the technology. So we learn how to code, we learn Arduino, we learn to use sensors, basic robotics, and mechanisms. Next. So we've achieved a lot in the last 2 years. These are some of the examples of the first year program. So as usual, we teach drawing, but we don't teach drawing just to, let's say, represent a table or represent or copy a building, but we teach drawing as a tool to understand phenomena, to understand systems, and to represent and analyze those systems. And this is the basis for what we call rule-based design and generative design, which is design using some of the tools like AI and software to generate new designs. Next. So these are some of the drawings that we generate in the first semester in the studio, where we take some natural phenomena and then we study them and we represent them. And we have also started many collaborations with industry. And for example, some of these drawings that we generated in the first semester, first year, were used by some of our collaborators, in this case, Silsal, as some of the graphics for a new collection of products. Next. We've also collaborated with many industry manufacturers, and especially in furniture. So we collaborate with Vitra and we collaborate with Herman Miller, who are very, very big international companies. And our students develop new ideas for the future of seating, for example. So in this case, we see the project by Yang Kai, who was inspired in a spider, and he was originally trying to design a chair, but then he turned it into this walker for toddlers to learn how to walk. Or Zena's project, who was looking at the problem of breastfeeding mothers in public. So she designed this chair, which is more of a space, a private space for mothers to breastfeed their babies in public. Next, please. This is another project by Basim, and it was exhibited during Dubai Design Week. Our whole collaboration with Herman Miller was exhibited there. Next. And we constantly foster new collaborations with the government, with other academic institutions, and with industry. So examples with the government, well, Dubai Court, and we are working with Smart Dubai, and that's why Dr. Ali Al-Azawi is here with us today. Examples of other academic institutions, as Hani said previously, we work with MBRU and also with AUS, and we're establishing collaborations with other universities around the world. For example, we're in conversations with some of our partners to establish programs for our students to visit them and have summer programs. And we also work with industry. So Herman Miller, Audi, Fjord, and many of these companies. Next. This is an example of interdisciplinary design, the Design for Health bootcamp that we conducted with MBRU. So here we got design students to work with engineering students from AUS and the medical students from MBRU to tackle problems of the local healthcare industry. Next. And Nurin, our fashion design lecturer, is working with Expo 2020 to design costumes for the opera. And of course, our students are greatly involved in this project. Next. We also exhibited our students' works in GITEX, the Technology Week, here in the UAE. Next. So basically, our structure has three main types of courses. The first one that we're seeing here is the workshop, where we learn the basic skills like the making, the coding, software, the materialization, creation of new materials. Then we have the lectures, where we basically learn the theory and the thinking behind what we do. And we have the studio, which is the most important course. And here is where we put together everything that we learn to develop our design projects. So these are some examples of what we do in the workshop in the first year. It's called the Ecology of Forms. And here we manipulate many different materials, and we also manipulate digital technologies to play with forms, to understand the materials, and to generate new forms. So here we have different forms that are simulated or generated through different materials like clay or plasticine, wood, and foam. Next. Again, here the same experimentation with the materials, with styrofoam balls to create this foam. And we constantly go from the digital to the physical. So in some cases, we start with the physical experimentation and we digitalize it, or vice versa. We start with the digital experimentation and we turn it into the physical. So here we see some examples of both physical and digital prototypes. Next. Here again, another experimentation with some of these physical and digital prototypes, and we can see the texture of these forms that we're generating. Next. We also use state-of-the-art technologies. So in coding and software, we use game design programs and three-dimensional design programs, but also in the making, we use 3D printing, laser cutter, and all of the new tools that allow us to achieve final products like these. Here, this is a digital experimentation to generate some of the forms, and this one would be a 3D printed, or the materialization of some of these digitally generated forms. Next. And next. And in the first year, we also teach game design. So we use software like Unity, and our students code and develop some games using some of the forms and shapes that they generated in other digital tools. Next. And we test them. As Hani was saying, testing is very important. So we invite people, we invite our friends in the community to try the projects by our students. In this case, in our foyer, we see the students with their laptops and with the games that they designed, and people playing with their games. Next. And again, we constantly go from the physical to the digital and vice versa. So here we have some surfaces which are generated with Grasshopper, which is a plugin for Rhino. And then now we can turn those parametric designs into physical forms through the different tools. So we could use wood or acrylic and the different machines like CNC milling, CNC routing, laser cutting, 3D printing, and others. Next. So here we see some of the final outcomes. And sorry, my computer is popping up little tabs. Sorry for that. Here, we also see another very interesting experimentation, which is about creating our own bioplastics. So we believe that designers are not only the people that specify colors or forms or textures, but have no idea of how things are made. But we as designers of the future should be also able to innovate and even invent our new materials. So here in the workshop, our students experiment with different recipes to create bioplastics. And this is also very important because it aligns with our idea of care or design for sustainability. How can we develop new materials that are more environmentally friendly? Next. We also experiment with traditional prototyping, or what we call quick and dirty prototyping with simple materials, in this case, foam. And we also experiment with paper, balsa wood. Here, this experimentation, it's a first-year project where the idea was to link the different modules and connect them. But again, it was not just to make like a Lego game or something of the sort, but really the idea of exploration with modules. And this was based on the analysis of systems. Next. Some 3D printed shapes that were digitally generated. Next. And we also embed electronics and mechanisms. So we teach Arduino, we use motors, we use sensors, and we teach simple mechanisms, which would normally be taught in engineering, to be able to make our prototypes. So these are our Robo Pets, our robotic pets that our students develop in the first year. Next. So we have the little kangaroos, and we have this other project that looks like somewhat like a moving pillow. Next. And we exhibit them. So we created a petting robotic zoo, and we had people from schools and family and friends come and visit and interact with the Robo Pets that our students designed. Next. And now some examples from the studio. So in the first year studio, we explore the senses and we explore the body. In this case, it was about wearable technology. So Shama was exploring multi-sensory soles, or how these objects could affect the senses, the touch sense, especially in feet and people. Next. Or this is Sanna's project, which was about flavor masking. Here, she looked at vision and smell and taste and how they are connected. And if we block some of them, the other senses are enhanced. Next. And the porcupine by Alhan was basically exploring also the sense of touch, and in a way imitating a porcupine, or creating all these bristles that create a new way of sensing things. Next. Abdelrahman's Mashima, which was basically based on postures of the body. Next. And Nikilesh and Annabella's project reflected, which was basically a study of vision and how through creating this prosthetic device, as we call it, the vision could be enhanced and multiplied, somewhat like the vision of a fly that comes from many different sides with different lenses. Here, by strategically placing some mirrors, the people wearing this can see from many different points of view. Next. Or Hassan's project, which was basically a vest to get in touch with your inner self and to hear your vital organs. These projects are all in the first year, and they were not meant to be finalized products or commercial products. They're basically conceptual ideas around looking at the body, understanding basic ergonomics and anthropometrics, and starting to develop initial design projects. The project by Mahan and Philippe was about balance and how through this wearable they could affect the balance in people. So it was filled with sand that would change position and would change the center of gravity of the body and affect the balance of the user. Next. And here, Yang Kai, he in a way used what we call biomimicry, which is innovation inspired by nature. His task was to design a device to enhance the sense of smell. And in this case, he looked at elephants. So he designed this like double elephant trunk to enhance the sense of smell in people. Next. Or here, Mariam's design, which was basically about proximity and like a shield for your body. So she designed this spiked wearable that would react to other people and keep you far from the contact of other people, a protective wearable. Next. Or this project by Dalila, where they were also exploring affecting vision and seeing from different points of view. Next. Here, we also embed very much technology. Again, since the beginning of our studies, we embed technology. So this project by Abdulaziz was basically around creating a device to aid blind people to navigate the space. So instead of having a physical walking cane, this device could sense obstacles and through vibration tell the people with disabilities how to navigate the space. Next. And we have the culture of studios and critiques. So to enhance our students' communication skills and to discuss and improve the projects, every time we have a presentation, we get together several of our professors or we invite external jury to provide feedback to the projects. Next. This again is a typical scenario of a jury where we have invited people. Next, and our students are presenting their projects and their ideas, and they're receiving feedback. Here we see some projects of the second semester in the first year where we imagine future scenarios. So we look at the current technologies that are being developed like AI, AOT, blockchain, or artificial meat, synthetic tattoos, all of these new technologies, and we try to envision how would this change our world and how would our world be in 50 years, for example. So here we will see some of the symbiotic creatures that some of our students designed with this in mind. Here is a virtual reality project where our students created like this doomsday future scenario where there were some, let's say, very evolved humans and not so evolved humans in conflict, and they designed the whole virtual experience. And here, as you see in the little insert, they also designed a chair to experience and to interact with the people. So there is a tentacle in this chair, which, depending on the storyline of the VR, would interact physically with the user. Very much like what today is entertainment or 4D, when you go to the movie and your seat vibrates and then you're sprayed with water, just for the purpose of entertainment and multimedia, and basically to affect your senses. Next. Here are students Alhan and Rafif and Mona also explaining one of their projects. Next. And this is their project, which was very interesting. It's an automated deployable structure, which could be related with origami and tessellations, but it's basically about compressible structures. The process here is very interesting because they started with experimentation with materials, but then they came into this structural solution that has many applications and is really a big innovation. So we could imagine using this sort of structure in Mars or here on Earth to quickly install antennas or disaster relief shelters. The applications are really immense. Next. Here we see the structure, or what we would call the technical drawings in gray and colors of the project. And we see some of the images that show how these structure self-deploys or collapses. Next. And this is the interesting part and what we teach here at the DIDI. It's really about experimentation and many times failing and trying different things to come to these solutions. So we don't follow a linear path, like Hani was saying. We basically follow circular paths of iterations and failing many times to be able to discover new things. These prototypes were when our students were experimenting with leather, with acrylic, bending it, and so on. And then they came with a solution of the deployable structure. Next. And here again, we have the critique and some of our students presenting their projects. Next. This is Nikilesh's project, and it was this future creature that would basically navigate the seas or be on land and take trash, grind it, and 3D print it. And this was a concept, but the final prototype actually worked. So this prototype, Nikilesh printed it in the fabrication lab, and putting some sand and some water, the prototype, this little robot, would 3D print little lumps of sand, which again is pretty advanced for a first-year studio project. Next. And of course, process is very important for us. So design is not just about the final outcome, but it's really about the journey, the exploration process. So we have digital blogs or just sketchbooks where we compile and document all the design process, all the different tests that we do for a project. Next. Here we have Nikilesh's blog where he shows all the different experiments and exercises in his workshop. Next. And this was Nayef's and Nur's project, and the title is A Whole New World, and they were basically looking at intelligent materials and also intelligent surfaces to be able to cover the buildings of the future. This was exhibited in the Global Graduate Show, which exhibits the best projects from all around the world from design schools. Next. I'll try to go quickly because I'm probably taking a bit too much time, but these are some of the examples of the product design concentration second year. So here the students were exploring small devices that would interact with people, basically in terms of human emotions or new behaviors, or imagining that the products actually have behaviors and behave like little creatures. So this was a mouse to help aid in stress. Next. And the next one is a project by Nikhilesh, where he basically turns images and color into sound. And this could be a completely new experience for blind people to experience visuals and colors and art. Next. Here we have a DT's project basically around sleeping better and controlling our circadian rhythms and basically limiting the amount of use of the mobile phone. Next. Here we have some of the experiments in fashion. So here Amal created her own material, the brown material that you see here from kombucha, and created this whole collection of garments. Next. Other projects by Danya talking about the topic of the oppressed. Next. And the fashion workshop where students learn the skills of actually sewing and using the sewing machines, cutting the patterns. Next. Here they were basically taking shirts and disassembling them and reassembling them. This is from Multimedia Design, and it's basically exploring the interaction of animals and products, so how we can create new interfaces and interactions for our pets. This project was by Aisha and Hur. Next. And Sentient, another project by Nikhilesh, where we basically explored the idea of making digital interfaces physical by creating this three-dimensional cube where he would actually visualize or make tangible the sort of interfaces that are currently just digital or with a screen. So he would interact with his computer and with the camera, and the cube would show this. This is part of the multimedia course. And here we have some of the projects of data aesthetics. So basically how to communicate and visualize data in 2 dimensions, in 3 dimensions, like in the case of these projections by Abdul Ramad. Next. Or how to make physical objects to communicate this data. Next. And this is a strategic design management studio. So basically here, some of the strategic design goals were taking, in this case, transportation, and the students looked at strategies and looked at systems and how to create new solutions for transport systems. And in this case, it's very much related to service design. Or this project where it was basically exploring dates and date farming and new businesses for this. Next. And Hani, I give you the floor again. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say that we truly believe our students are superheroes. And I'm going to give the floor to our guests now. And so Razan, if you can do the switcheroo to get Dr. Ali and Alessandro online, please.
Yep, they're here. So Dr. Ali, would you like to start?
Hi. Thank you very much. That was actually quite an interesting little journey and soiree into all these wonderful ideas. And I just have to say that I wish I could just become a student again and just turn up at DIDI lectures. Yeah, I'm sure it's the same for you, honey. You'd like to be a student in your own sort of establishment. It really is the right thing in terms of the mindset. For me, I'm a city experience advisor at Smart Dubai. What does that mean? It means that my job is to pay attention to the way people experience the city. And of course, experience by definition means it has to come through the senses and then actuated through my interaction. So interaction design is the whole thing that we're paying attention to. But to us at Smart Dubai, design is about problem solving. And the city essentially is a mega puzzle. And we are there to figure out all these little problems to fix. Problems, I use that sort of word loosely. Of course, they're challenges in the sense that we are there we get excited about these problems to solve. But really the problem that we're trying to solve is how we can make cities more efficient for a better quality of life. That's ultimately that's the sort of the solution endpoint. And in Smart Dubai specifically, our remit is to use technology. So what that means is, how can we use emerging technology and existing other technology, it doesn't have to be emerging, as possible tools for solving human needs. So we start with the human. As Hani and Professor Carlos mentioned many times, it has to start with the human being, and it has to be continuously human-centric. So IoT, blockchain, AI, yeah, whatever, if it helps me provide or fix or solve for that problem, great, I love it. But I wouldn't use it for the sake of it. I don't think any of the design thinking that is taught at DIDI says that. It just says, hey, these are tools that you could possibly use that. And that is the right way. And that is consistently the way we behave in our design meetings here. So for us, design is definitely a multidisciplinary context by definition, especially in a city context. It's everything. All the pieces come in to solve that one problem. There are so many players here. So design actually is a mindset. It's a process. And what students will get out of graduating from DIDI is not necessarily the set of knowledge items which DIDI will teach you. That's not the issue. But more so, the value, the real nugget that you're going to walk away with is that mindset. It's that thinking way. So design is a thinking game. That's why I get excited about it. It's a puzzle, and Hani smiles when I say that. Yeah, that's the whole point, right? That's what excites us all. But thinking about what and thinking, in what ways? Well, I mean, as you can see from the syllabus at DIDI, it's really quite an extensive menu of giving the students all these different flavors of the types of problems that they can think about. But ultimately, we call it in the design field, you get it. You understand what it is you're trying to do. And therefore, any kind of problem comes your way is just equivalent to another problem, in the sense that there's a pattern that we get eventually. So what I'll do is I'll give you some description. I don't want to take too much of the time because I have to go to another meeting, unfortunately, but I'll give you some ideas of the kinds of problems that I personally have been involved with, and that gives you a sense of that sort of repeated pattern of what it is that we get when we're doing design. So every smart city will have some degree of mobile apps that they would have been involved in designing. But specifically, there's a mobile app that we've got in Smart Dubai, which is called Dubai Now. But Dubai Now is the sort of app that does nothing itself, because it is the container that has multiple apps. The way that I was presented with this problem was, Here's a blank sheet of paper, starting from scratch. You've got 2,000 city services, put them all into this little space. Okay, well, that's a mega problem. How do you actually cram in all these things without making a list and still making it usable for people, relevant for people, and so on? And then you have to do it in such a way that it's doable. So it's not good enough just to come up with these wonderful ideas, but it has to be, physically manufacturable or codable and so on. So there's this constant playing of the constraints. Every design problem has constraints, everyone, whether it's money, time, material, something. You get, that's part of your brief. So Dubai now is that modular. The answer that we eventually had was a modular, extensible system where you can keep adding services and still does not cram up that feeling. Obviously, we've got lots of other apps like Smart Employee, Smart Supplier, Smart Inventory. These are all fixing new problems in a smart city space. But one particular one we had was UAE Pass. That's a digital identity, a mobile digital identity. So the brief for that one was, how can we use the mobile itself as the identity to log in to all of these services across the whole city and still maintain biometric security? Okay, the techies would say, oh, you have to do it like this. This is a registration process. Why? Because that's how we have it in the background. So I had to fight back the techies saying, oh, this is the right way, and say, no, hang on a second. What would the user expect? So go back to the user. What is natural for the user? Because if I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to get any adoption. And the technology or the solution, as Hani said earlier, if it doesn't work for people, it is irrelevant. It's useless. If you can't communicate that across, pointless idea. So you've now wasted all of your manufacturing process. Of course, we've had many website kind of work here in Smart Dubai, but a specific website in a special case is the Dubai Pulse website. The Dubai Pulse website is basically saying, okay, we've got all the data in the city. How can we have all that with the tools to use the data into a single place? And on top of that, how can we design, and this is coming to the design in a different way, design the process of ingesting the data from the city onto the website? So the task was not just, hey, how do you do a website? No, how do you design the data ingestion process of the smart city so that it is then available and then usable to a practical sense for people at the end point, which is, again, the people themselves. So that was a Dubai Pulse kind of problem. Another kind of thing that we get involved in is information and tool design. So economic dashboard, for example. This is something that we worked on in Smart Dubai, which is for a politician or a city manager, how can I present the data in Dubai Pulse in order for that particular manager to make decisions? So now I have to get into the mindset of the decision maker, say, okay, what is it you want to know? How can I now present the data to you? I think Professor Carlos mentioned many times there's this business of, okay, how do you work with information? How can you switch between physical and digital? This is very important, but this is why the students get trained in DIDI for this kind of thing. Not that that particular solution might be useful in the world, but that process of thinking of how to turn this problem into a tangible, usable, applicable, and practical thing for that end user, in my case here, the city manager, that's the bit that's important. But we also get involved in really obscure things like behavioral change. So one particular project that we did was something called Happy to Pay. How can I make people change the way they think about fine payments in order that they're actually happy to pay that? So one solution for that one was to link the fine, traffic fine, which I unfortunately have too many of, how can I make people say, no, that fine is actually a benefit and it's okay. I'm okay. I'm happy to pay for that. And that was a behavioral change project, which we did with the police, Dubai police. So currently, if you have a fine, you will see this little thing which says, this is what the fine is going to get spent on in terms of the sectors in the city, health, education, and so on. And you as a user have a way to change that or vote your point of view. Suddenly you realize that, hey, the fine is not just for building sort of luxury things, but it's actually going to be used for projects. And I can now have my vote, my say, if you like. All of a sudden, when we measure the happiness of people before that application and after, we realize that there is an increase in the way people feel about fines. But also we design concepts. CX Lab was the first ever CX Lab in a government establishment in the Middle East, was done at Smart Dubai. Actually, before it was Smart Dubai, it was Dubai Smart Government. It's exactly what we did, what Professor Carlos and Hani was mentioning earlier. We research, we bring in people from the street, we talk to them about their problems, their needs, and so on. And we make up prototypes. We literally create those prototypes and try them out on these very same people. Say, hey, what are you going to do with this? Dubai Now, as I mentioned earlier, was just literally some sketches which I would show to a user before I start investing real effort into the idea. Does this picture make sense to you? What would you click on next? You know, paper prototyping, which means just I sketch it and I cut it out on paper and I show it to them. Pretend it's a mobile phone. What would you do? That way of thinking is very cathartic, actually. It says the business of humbling, as Hani mentioned earlier, when you are okay to be wrong. But that's how you get the right. You be wrong many times and you keep going around in circles until you, okay, I've polished it now. This is worth coding. This is worth making. And then you take it to the model maker or the coder, and then they'll try it out. And now you're more likely to get adoption for the thing that you made, which is a wonderful experience for a designer to see the thing that they've created and they've worked on out in the street. In fact, I had that funny sort of experience in the wild once. I was on the train and I saw these two ladies talking about this app, and she's saying, hey, this is a really cool app. And the way she was describing, I couldn't see what she was looking at, but the way she was describing it, I thought, oh, this sounds a bit like Dubai Now. And I said, oh, excuse me, do you mind, telling me what this is about? She said, oh yeah, it's this really cool thing called Dubai Now. Oh, wow, you like this? Oh, tell me more about it. Why do you like it? So we work towards that, which to see that thing that we worked on being useful to somebody. And the process of design, that design thinking, gets us closer to that point. And so one of the things that we're working on is how that feeling, that digital well-being that is called, what is it that's technology going to affect our well-being? How can it make us feel better? So this is a whole discipline in itself, which I'm particularly spending time on right now. But one thing that we are working on with DIDI specifically is this thing about designing digital services, which is a course and a way of thinking, which is to say, if you understand the digital technology, how can you take that understanding into the way to understand how to make a service? This is very important and critical at a smart city level. So I won't sort of spoil the fun by telling too much about it, but it's where that merge of that strong design ethic with that strong applicability in the city comes in to actually deliver something useful to people to do. So to do in the city. So ultimately, Smart Dubai is about taking all that thinking game and turning it into a practical, applicable, and tangible benefit to people in the city. So I don't want to go on, but I could. I'm sure you.
It's fascinating, Ali. I'm curious to know how our audience is actually responding to this, because it's fascinating. It's great to see a city doing this, and it's great to be You know?
Yeah, we are doing what you teach.
Yeah.
We literally do that. That is.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I have to leave at past. So I beg your pardon for that, but there's an urgent meeting after it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Ali, but now that we have 10 more minutes of your time, I would like to ask you a question. So
Yes.
from your point of view in Smart Dubai, what would be the main skills that you would look at, for example, in one of our students for an internship or some of our potential students to start working and applying their design skills in Smart Dubai? What would be some of these key characteristics or skills that you would be looking for in these people?
For me, it's more of a mindset skill rather than a physical skill, because I know in terms of hygiene, DIDI teaches all the right things. So I would never worry about that part. I would just, in fact, I don't even assume. I know that you guys do that. So there's nothing missing in the curriculum from DIDI for the real world. It's all there. What is important, and I know that you guys emphasize this in the way you teach, is that mindset. It's that process of thinking. It's that wondering. It's that curiosity. It's the sort of trying it out. Is it okay to get it wrong? It's the why would I do it this way or not the other way? And one thing that Hani said earlier, very, very important, everything without exception that we see around us that is man-made was designed by somebody deliberately. And the critical part is they either got it right or they got it wrong.
Yeah.
And hopefully, for our sake, they got it right. And which means that whether you know, on a mobile phone, that curve, the radius of it, the length of that edge, and that was a decision by somebody. Did they make the right decision? Why did they make that curve that much? They could have made it less or more. Was there a reason? Did they go through a process, a rational process, a testing of that idea of how much that curve or length or the material that they could have used this material instead of that material? Was that a deliberate act? That's the kind of thing that I'm looking for when I'm working with somebody, Professor Carlos, to answer your question directly. I'm looking for somebody who deliberately decides on something rather than says to me, yeah, but that's the first thought that came to my head. That's the wrong answer.
Thank you, Dr. Ali.
Thank you.
Dr. Ali, we have two students, Agma and Arnav, and I am going to put them on the spot and see if they have questions for you.
Yes.
Arnav or Agma?
Hi, yes, we're here.
Yeah, if you have questions or something to share from your experience, that would be very helpful. But since we have limited time with Dr. Ali, I would recommend if you can think of something to ask him about Smart Dubai and the amazing work they do.
I mean, it was really fascinating to hear about how Smart Dubai, they worked on it. And I was like, wow, I'm actually listening from the person who worked on it. And yeah, I don't really have any questions, but Agma, do you have any?
What kind of work do you, what kind of stuff have you done? And I see some interesting sketches behind you.
Oh, yeah. So that's like one of my old projects from first semester, and I had been working on it. Maybe I can send like a picture of my project.
Yeah.
It was this understanding how the growth of a banyan tree works, and understanding that and making it into an algorithm, sort of like how would a computer program build this growing structure or this design, how does it work? And using that, I hand drew out this form, and there's like a couple of different versions that I made out of it.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Actually, as it happens, I'm particularly at a personal level, I'm getting into sort of marine biology right now, trying to understand what happened 550 million years ago in the seas in Australia. It seems like a very interesting topic. So that reminds me of all those discussions. Sorry, who was the other student that maybe got a question?
Agma?
No, I'm good. I was just like mesmerized by what you said and the whole smart Dubai thing. And the fact that you said that, oh yeah, you know, when we pay fines, like especially me, I just started driving and like the whole fine thing, you know, I actually thought about it and I'm just like, yeah, why not? If it's for something good, like, yeah, because whenever we pay a fine, it's more like, oh no, we paid a fine, now we'll have to give it off to something. But now thinking about it this way, yeah, it's a good thing that we get to, you know, give it off to something that's really inspiring. So yeah.
I mean, it's the reason I showed that range of activities that we've had. Hopefully, you guys can see the pattern here. It's basically a problem with constraints, and then you go through the iterations to find out the solution. You don't have to know in detail about that particular IoT or blockchain. You need to know generally what's the idea behind it, because ultimately the designer is going to get to the prototyping point and then hand it over to the expert in blockchain or AI to get it right. But the basic idea needs to be figured out by the person who is happy to be wrong. I mean, I think that's the sort of biggest skill of a designer, is happy to be wrong and happy to try out until you find the right answer. And that's just constant. Never think the last idea is the only idea you've had. You may as well just leave design if that's what you think, because your job is to just have this machine of just idea after idea after idea. Okay, drop that one, take the other one, drop that one, take the other one. Constant mutations, if you like. Hence my interest in this marine biology. Evolution was just a bunch of ideas, and we now have what we have is because some of them failed and some of them survived, and we are in this business of trying stuff out. It's extremely exciting. I mean, I don't know if you guys think COVID is a problem. I don't think it's a problem. It's just been the most exciting time, because suddenly it's disrupted all of our norms. And now we have to think again, which means everything is up for grabs. Of all these constraints now have changed, which means now we have to think again. So it's of course there's no denying that it's causing a lot of upset to a lot of people. But as far as now for us as designers, there's an opportunity to help all these people and to reduce any suffering, any ongoing suffering. So it's an exciting point for us to be able to contribute to these challenges. I'm sure Professor Carlos and Hani feel the same way about the sort of opportunities COVID is providing ahead of time, all this disruption.
Yes, we see, what's interesting is that we saw that our students and faculty were of two minds. There was one mindset which said we need to act and change, and there was another mindset that said I don't need any more distractions, I want to continue doing what I'm doing. So, and then we actually restructured the curriculum to meet those two demands. And had we not listened, we would have assumed that everyone would be actually coming up with solutions. But in fact, there was a big chunk of people who were saying, look, I have enough disruptions in my life, I need to continue doing that. And we did that through the listening process. And this is so important. And we wouldn't have guessed that had we not had that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe I would like to invite Alessandro to do a final question to Dr. Ali, and then maybe Alessandro also tell us a bit more about his work.
Yeah, thank you. I was feeling almost guilty of interrupting this fantastic conversation, you know, because it was like entering in a very deep topics and very important topics that actually are obliging most of us to change our life, to have this kind of meetings in front of a computer, when I really would love to be with you in the same place, looking in the eyes each other. and why not taking a coffee together and talk about our families and how things are going with the students and everyone. Yeah. I mean, I feel really home here with you because everything that you said really fit in what's my life and in what's the history of the company that I represent, which is Fjord, the, let's say, human-centric design a studio of a bigger family called Accenture. Accenture is a company of half million employees in every corner of the world that in 2013 decide that this human-centric vision was necessary to be, to change, to evolve, and to really create services and products around the needs of the big companies that Accenture was serving all around the world. So when I listened to Dr. Ali and the fantastic projects that they are doing, I'm actually a user of most of the services that he was mentioning. I love to buy now. I love. I'm sure that behind a project like that, there is a lot of ethnography. No, I'm sure that there is a lot of field work. I'm sure that there is a lot of what Hani was mentioning before of qualitative.
For Dubai Now, we did 120 hours worth of interviews. That's 120 people, 1-to-1, 1 hour.
I know. And I know that for every hour, you need 3 hours at least.
Indeed.
The information, yes.
Then you have to analyze it. And then, of course, you have to do the iterations, the design. Yeah, you got it exactly right. You know exactly what we went through in order to get to the first iteration.
I know.
Alessandro, I have to apologize sincerely because I particularly wanted to hear what. May I please have your contact details so that we can chat afterwards? I'd love to listen, and I feel sad that I'm going to miss out on, I think, one of the most interesting parts.
I'm sure that there will be more opportunities. Let's do it.
Inshallah. I will leave it to the team at DIDI to organize a proper coffee thing.
Of course. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thanks to you.
Thank you so much,
Ali.
Dr. Ali. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hani, as you prefer, I can tell something
Please
about.
Go ahead. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I really feel also identified when you were talking about hybrid profiles, no? Because I'm a geologist, so I'm originally a geologist. Then when I finished my degrees, I did a specific study on geospatial information. And that was the moment where I entered a little bit more on the innovation and the design world. I've been creating some startups with friends. I failed a lot, and I did an MBA in a business school in Spain, and I entered a little bit more in this world of a little bit more corporate. The interesting point is that when I tried at the end of my MBA to start having conversations with a more design innovation companies, we were talking about 15 years ago, more or less, design companies were not, some of them, really understanding the link between, because we have to see the two faces, no? We have the side of the design that 20 years ago, more or less, was starting to really think that to create services and products, the human centricity was the key. And then we had the side of the big companies historically pushing for more technological / business side of the things. That were not talking a lot. There was not a lot of the conversation between them. So I was, at the end of my MBA, I was closer probably to the corporate world, even with my personal background on innovation also. And the design company were seeing profiles like mine, like a little bit more, you, an MBA, was like, you know, two words that were not talking a lot, at least in Europe. I'm talking about Europe in the 2005, 2010. But when then you think about the origin of a company like Fjord, actually Fjord understood since the beginning that the correct way of doing things was mixing these two words. Fjord was born in 2001 in London, and the founders were from the Nordics. Actually, Fjord, they decided to put the name Fjord because they considered that a fjord is the most beautiful interaction between the land and the sea. And they were going to design interactions. That was the idea of the company in 2001. They were coming from, you know, industrial design background. So, and design thinking was something already in their mind, as well as human-centric design. And they understood at that moment that there was something to solve, a problem to solve, which was the interaction of humans with the mobile phones, something that we were talking, we talk about every day. But think about the mobile phones in 2001. They had nothing to see with what are the mobile phones today. Today, mobile phones today, there's an Italian innovator that I love him, he's a journalist, etc. And he calls normally the mobile phone as the remote control of our lives. I think that it's a nice definition. It's actually true. You know, we control more or less everything with that. But in 2001, I mean, you were just calling and starting to have, you know, more menus and etc. So with this in mind, Fjord started defining the first menu of the first phone. And there was a big company that you students probably have never heard about it. Maybe in some, you know, remote corner of the houses of your parents, you will find some of these phones that put Nokia on top of them, no? So there was a company in the Nordics called Nokia that, you know, start asking Fjord to design the interaction for their phones. Not only the digital, also the physical interaction. So if some with my age, around the 40s or more, remember, at some point in the Nokia started appearing a round button in the middle, you know, to be able to move easily in the menus of the mobile phone, and of course to play with a game that was called the Snake at that moment, no? That probably some of you remember. So Fjord was behind that. Fjord was designing most of the physical and digital interactions on the first mobile phones. And I give you, you know, and so try to imagine what happened when Apple launched the iPhone. Suddenly, you know, there was no limit on the creation of new interaction. But at the same time, Fjord was studying a lot, was growing and creating a group of thinkers inside Fjord to understand not only interaction in mobile phones, but in general, what was the future of design, technology and innovation, according with the vision of the designers of the network, of the global network of Fjord. So in 2008, Fjord started issuing a trends book that today is one of the, let's say, of the documents that we consider most relevant, at least for us and for Accenture, because today it's fed by more than 2,000 designers around the 33 studios that we have in the world, and that give also us the possibility to start this year a collaboration with DIDI, with the DIDI, and to start and know something more about you, about your world, and to feel really recognized on the mindset, connecting with what Dr. Ali was saying before, of the students with whom we have been, unfortunately, shortly, because then COVID starts and things change a little bit, but during the first 6 months, let's say, of this year. So coming back a little bit to complete what I was telling about the history of Fjord. Fjord start moving in 2008 and 6 or 7 to this focus, completely focused on digital and phone interaction, to the concept of omnichannel. The omnichannel concept is something that today for us it's common, no? To think about, yeah, I have an experience on my phone. When I move to desktop, the experience should be seamless. And then when I go to the agency, for example, of the Dubai municipality, what they have been doing in the digital platforms will be, there will be a consistency in my interaction in the physical environment. This is something that took a lot of time to be realized from the designers. At the beginning, there was this segregation on digital, physical understanding, and omnichannel is something that came after, actually, and the connection with the physical, and this importance that now today for you in the IDI is common, but actually it's not something that arrives since the beginning. And to conclude this introduction, in 2013, when Fjord was already globally recognized as one of the most known design studios, Accenture, a big company known more for technology vision and for scaling big projects around consulting, decides to include us in their portfolio of companies. And basically we have been helping them closing this triangle that Hani was showing at the beginning, where you have, of course, business marketing, business power, you have the technological feasibility, and you have the desirability that comes from human-centric design. When you understand really the needs of the people, and starting from the needs of the people, where Fjord was very good in understanding the interaction and the needs of people, then you decide what's the technology that you will apply, and you do the business case, and you market it. So today we are, as I was saying, we have a studio in Dubai, but it's one of the 33 studios around the world. We are 1,500 designers in Fjord itself, and we are in a group of around 500,000 employees all around the world as Accenture.
That's amazing. It's really a very encouraging story for our students and perspectives. Carlos, you want to ask Alessandro what you asked Dr. Ali before? I think you want to, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Or maybe Arnav and Agma. But I mean, on behalf of our students, of course, what skills and what sort of mindset would you be looking at if you were taking an intern to work with you, or potentially what sort of projects would you involve them in?
Look, I want to tell a story around this short one, because I was personally hiring in Madrid, because I've been in Madrid since until the end of until 1 year ago, more or less, August of 2019, and we were, as we are doing in Dubai, we created our network of partnerships with the most important schools and design schools of Spain. And one of the schools where I was, where we were, hiring most of the at the beginning, of course, intern, and then they became designers 100%, and now they are really having huge success with us. Was a school where basically they were teaching with a method very close to the one of the IDI. So where there was not, a unidirectional, super focused on fashion, or when students have to again mix subjects and directions, but at the base where they were doing something that for me is key. They were basically working on solving problems. So they had practical cases all the time. I know that this is a model of a business school. It can sound like a model of a business school, but they actually had to create their own, even companies, even businesses, since the beginning. And with that mindset, they were then learning things to solve the problem that they had day by day, having professors like you, obviously, to direct them in the right place and to teach them specific art skills when it was necessary. But at the base, it was a problem-solving mindset. So when they arrived to Fjord, without knowing anything about, having just, a light layer of knowledge of everything, but not a specific one. When they arrive to Fjord and they have to immerse, for example, in, interaction design problems, or when they have to do things like Annie was mentioning before, creating a personality for a robot, because this is something that we are currently doing. We are defining the interaction conversational flows of robots, both chat and both vocal, and there's people from design companies doing that. So when they arrive, they were already open-minded, because they were not geologists that knows only what's going on in geology. No, they were people that have been touching a lot of different problems, trying to solve it through a design methodology. And so they were prepared for new challenges. So again, as Dr. Ali said, in the end, mindset, it's the best. The correct mindset is the best skill, but the correct mindset comes when you have the possibility to to solve very diverse challenges.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Alessandro. Now, I would like to open the opportunity to the participants to ask some questions about DIDI, or directly to Alessandro or to Arnav and Agma, our students. So, yes, we're opening the floor for questions. So we have Keenan, Khadija, Arman, Afaf, Imtisal, Sarah, Hiba, Devishi. I hope I'm pronouncing your names properly. Anybody has any questions, or if you want to ask them verbally, we invite you, but if you prefer to write on the chat, we're also happy to receive questions on the chat and discuss them.
We have in the chat a question, someone asking a question for the students.
Arman has a question for the students. So Arman, yes, please go ahead.
What is the best thing about the DIDI experience? Agma and Arnav, how would you answer that?
I think the best part is that we're like a small family. That's the best part. We can, like, we're all there for each other, like whenever. I know Agma and I, we've been like up till 4 a.m. in the night, just like helping each other out through the presentation and the projects and everything. I think that's the best part. Like, we're all family. Even with the professors, we're also close. And you can approach the professors whenever you need to. And if you have any questions, you're like, they're really open to talk to. So I think that's the best part. Agma, what do you say?
Yeah, I think it's the connection with the professors we have, because we've celebrated with them, we've played with them. We literally go to the ground so that we can play volleyball. Like, Professor Carlos is a very good player. We've played, we've celebrated together, we've like cooked and brought from home so that we all could have it as a family. So I think it's the bonding that's the biggest factor of DD. And then everyone's really friendly, you can get along. Yeah, that's the best thing of DD, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Agma and Arnav. It's interesting that we have the names of the 3 A's. because Arman is asking the question and Arnav and Agma are answering. All A's here.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So maybe while we wait for questions, Agma and Arnav, can you talk a bit more about student life? I know you touched a little bit about the volleyball club. Maybe what else happens outside of academics?
We have like a lot of events that we used to do before Corona happened. So we had like movie nights, we had potluck, everyone made food by their, like in their own culture, and they brought it to DIDI and everyone celebrated together. We had, what else, Agma?
Game nights. We had game nights, and it's open to new suggestions. Like we suggest, and we find a day where all of us are free, and then just like pitch in, and we're in the thing. It's not like we say that okay, we'll do it, and then we never end up doing it. Yeah. And then we play. We have a badminton court, which is almost new, but then we do go there. And then we have the box park, which is like right next to D3, these are the places where we spend most of our time. So other than studies part, yeah, that's where we go.
Yeah.
And just to add on to what they've said, since we're located in Dubai Design District, there's a lot of events that happen here at D3, whether it's Design Week, Fashion Forward, and so on. And the area that Agma was talking about is called The Block, which has a basketball court, skateboarding park, parkour playground, rock climbing walls, volleyball, and like the list goes on. So it's like a nice outdoor park that D3 has. We have another question. Sarah is asking, how was your university education like to lead you up to where you are today compared to DIDI? This is a question for professors and tutors.
I'll give you the floor.
To me?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so the question is how does my education lead me here, or how would the DIDI education lead me here? Can I clarify that?
I think the question means that your university education, how does it compare to what DIDI teaches today?
Okay, I went to MIT and Harvard, and I believe that DIDI is at the same level, if not better, honestly, because we can learn from those experiences. This is my honest and modest opinion, but I'm not the one to judge because I'm helping put the curriculum together. But that's our goal, that's our bar. Our bar is Harvard MIT level, and so far the students' work, not because Arnav and Agma are there, but the student work has been just stunning. And a good example is the Global Grad Show project, which usually global grad show projects take graduating students' work. So 4-year university students, and these were first-year students. So, and because we have the ability to combine technology and strategy into the curriculum from day one, we have a very good advantage. Other universities are not able to do that so quickly because they have departments and they have a system and they have a way of doing it. We are starting from this point. So that's why I claim that we will be stronger than or equal to MIT and Harvard, not to say strong. But definitely that's our bar. That's where we're going.
Okay, we have another question from Arman. He's asking if he was to apply to Design or Innovation University like us, would it be okay to not take subjects like design, technology, or art? So I don't know about other universities, but for us as DIDI, we do not have any subject prerequisites coming from high school. So as long as you graduate high school and you have a passion for design, you are welcome to join us at DIDI. Maybe Carlos and Hani, you can elaborate on that.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. And for me, the perfect example was the story that Alessandro told us. He started as a geologist, but he has become a designer. So really what is important is the mindset of experimenting and trying to make things better for people. It's not just about design and technology, and it's definitely not just about drawing nicely or taking subjects in art.
We teach you all that anyway. You will learn it. I mean, we don't teach you in the traditional way. You will learn it on the fly. You will learn it as you explore your different projects. You will learn those skills. They're just skills. that anyone can develop.
Any other
right,
question?
Feel free to write in the chat, or if you want to turn on your mics, you're welcome to do that as well.
You're welcome, Sarah. I saw your thanks. Yeah, you're welcome.
And for all of you that are here, I would like to remind you that for any specific questions about prior studies, level of English, and applications, you can definitely write to Razan. And for those of you that haven't experienced it, I would like to remind you that we offer free workshops. So we're doing several workshops online to show you a bit of what we do and how we teach and how we experiment. So please join our newsletter and our email list to receive the information of these workshops and courses.
Yeah, and for the workshops, we have one more left for the summer, and it's next week on Tuesday, and it's about fashion design. So it's going to be run by our fashion professor, Nurin, and it's going to be about what can a t-shirt teach us. So that's going to be really cool to see. Any more questions, anyone? Whether it's for us, for Alessandro, for the students, anything you'd like to know?
As we have Alessandro here, I would highly recommend asking him questions. He's taking time out of his vacation as well. So thank you so much for that, Alessandro. It means a lot to us.
It's always a pleasure. And as you can see, it's a rainy day. There's a question.
Oh, yes. There's a question asking, in the coming academic year, would there be a DIDI competition in schools? Yes, so what he's referring to is Project Design Space.
Yes, yes.
There will be hopefully a Project Design Space in the upcoming year, so wait for it, it's gonna happen. Anything else? Maybe Carlos, we should, if there's no more questions, maybe we should wrap up. For those of you who are looking to join us in the fall, our application is still open, but hurry up because our orientation starts soon. It starts on the 23rd, and then university starts on the 30th. So if anyone's still thinking about joining, now is the time. Yeah, anything else that you'd like to add? Students, Carlos, Hani, Alessandro, maybe?
No, basically a big thank you. A big thank you, well, to Alessandro for providing his time to us, to you, Razan, for organizing, to our students also for joining, Hani for his presentation, and everybody who has been with us for your attendance. Thank you very much. And please join our workshops, and please feel free to come to us if you have any more questions.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to see you soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.